Hello and welcome. It's Joseph Scott Mcardle with Keller Williams Realty, and I have my guest here today.
Andrei Jablokow from Win Inspections.
Thank you very much for joining me. So, in the commercial realm, okay, a lot of people understand in the residential realm, home inspections are a very good idea. In the commercial realm, is it also a very good idea?
I don't think it's only a good idea. I think it's almost necessary.
And why is it necessary?
Well, it's not just about the systems in the building. It's about trying to help the person who's either leasing the space or buying the property to make an informed business decision. So we act more like a business consultant than just an inspector who's just checking systems. You know, if there's going to be capital expenditures now or in the future and you're responsible for them, when would you like to put them into your business plan? So you're not surprised.
Okay, so right up front, they should know the deal they're getting into as best as possible and have the professionals come in and explain what is likely to be needed at the beginning and then what is likely to be needed over time.
Right. So they need to know what needs to be repaired and replaced and fixed now, what's going to need to be done in about 5 years, and sometimes what's it going to cost in 20 years. Because with all things, the longer you wait, the more expensive it's going to get. So you want to plan around that and have it in your business plan rather than be surprised. And if you need to budget and save for that capital expenditure, you should have that as part of your plan with your business advisors.
Okay, and this is important not just when you purchase a commercial property, also if you were just to lease a commercial property.
Absolutely, maybe even more so on a lease, because you're responsible for, let's say if it's a triple net lease, which means you're responsible for almost everything. You want to know what it is the condition of things are, what it's going to cost you, again, in 0, 5, and 20 years. And then not only on the entrance in the lease, I would also get another inspection on your way out of the lease. So that when you're talking with the lessor, you can say to them, I've kept these things up as according to the contract. I haven't slipped up on my responsibilities. I'm giving it back to you in good faith. So I think being a responsible lessee, you would get that inspection in and out, and depending upon how long you're there, sometimes in between.
Okay, so in general, you at least have a baseline or a starting point, okay? And then essentially, if it's a lease and you're turning the space back over to the landlord, you'd want to have a similar professional review of the property to show the differences between when you started and when you ended. And generally speaking, as long as there's normal wear and tear, it's generally written into most agreements. I've written anything outside of that, and then I go into like, do you do that just before it's turned over? And if there's stuff that needs to be addressed, that can be addressed at that point.
Sure. I mean, it's really, I think it's a matter of conversation. So I've done some inspections where it was a large building, but they were all condos. It was a manufacturing warehouse kind of space. And the rooftop air conditioners were all, and the roof was all run by the owner. But I inspected them and looked at them, and I actually asked questions. Because sometimes the buyer, the lessor, might be a newer business. Maybe they buy buildings all the time. I don't know. Maybe they're buying them from out of town and they're not here. They don't know which questions to ask. So a lot of times it's not the answers I give to questions, but it's my questions to their answers that add the insight so that they were able to ask questions. What's the status of the roof? When was it fixed? What's the status of the rooftop units? And then the owner was able to say, yes, we know it's a problem. We know they're getting long in the tooth to the point where they need to be replaced, and we have the money to do the work. So you want to be able to have that open conversation with the person you're negotiating with.
So the knowledge actually gives you power.
Exactly.
And the knowledge gives you something to discuss. Also, I've noticed a lot of times with the tenant, okay, they're doing their own business. And their business is not essentially real estate. So it might be new and novel to them to actually come into the real estate realm when they're leasing, and having information is helpful.
It's very helpful. And, it's every single property, every single deal is going to be custom. but it's not only custom to that building and that situation, it's custom to the application. So, case in point, I did one application where there were cracks in the floor in the warehouse space.
Okay.
But the question is,
Are they significant? Are they costly?
what are you
Is
going
it
to be doing here? The
Yeah.
one guy says he wasn't going to be doing anything but driving his box truck in and storing some cases of stuff in there. The other one said, no. I need to bring in car lifts and put them on the concrete floor. It makes a difference as to what is the crack, how big is the crack, what does it mean to you? Because if it doesn't really matter, if it doesn't matter to what you're going to be doing as a business, then it won't be that big of a point of conversation. But if it's important, you want to know.
And you want to know up front, and you want everyone on the same page that it's there from the beginning.
You know, the thing that I hate most, I don't know about you, but I don't like surprises. I mean, I like them for birthday parties. They're great there. I love it. But otherwise, going into business, I've seen some where they meet me after the fact, after they purchased the building, and the 2 rooftop units went out about a month after they bought it, and now they're caught by surprise. Well, they didn't have 50, 60 grand in their budget for that this year. And so...
Right. I don't like financial surprises myself like that.
Nobody's ready for that.
Okay. So what are the other things you've seen?
So really, when we look at commercial properties, and again, they're all different. It could be anything from a dentist office in a house to a coffee shop to a gas station being renovated into something else, or it could be a 12 or 20-story office building or multifamily manufacturing. I've seen all sorts of things, but really, it comes down to 3 things.
What are the 3
The
things?
3 big money things that you need to be aware of.
First one.
The first one is the roof. Right, the roof's a problem. You need to make sure that the roof, it's a big money item to repair the roof, depending on the type of it is, and whether or not all the components of the roof, the parapet wall, anything weighing the roof down so it doesn't float up, an EPDM or TPO, that it's finished right. And so the roof's an expensive thing, and you want to know what's going on with the roof. That's expensive.
So also, I think even if they're leasing, you want to have that roof checked, even if the owner is responsible for that roof, as to the likelihood that there might be a leak during the term of the occupancy. Okay, even if the owner is responsible for it, businesses want to operate their business. They don't want to be dealing with leaks.
Well, the other thing is that the roof may not be all things. If you have a specialty business where you need some special heating or cooling because you've got a lab or there's something specific you do, then you might be adding things or changing things on the roof. So you need to know the condition before you start going in and making changes. So that's why it's very, you never buy anything or lease anything as is. You're going to be making changes and remodeling things. So you need to know, where are we starting? So the roof is a big thing.
Okay, and then the second one?
The second one is the air conditioning units. Okay. In residential, it's all heating and air conditioning. In commercial space, we cool the building first, and then we worry about heat. So the thing that's raising the temperature in the building is the people. That's what's raising the temperature. So the cooling has to be right, and it could be so complicated between rooftop units that do heating and cooling for the office space. There could be gas packs in the warehouse space. There could be specialty air conditioners. There could be, if there's a kitchen environment, other exhaust and supplemental air. If you've got an exhaust fan in the kitchen, are you taking all the conditioned air out of the dining room, out the roof? Where's the supplemental air coming from to feed that exhaust fan? We want to make sure that the heating and ventilating is exactly right, because it's expensive stuff. The other question is, even if you're leasing just one floor of a building, you want to make sure that the entire system is right. One example we talked about was, what if there's chillers on the roof and then heat pumps on every floor, but the chillers haven't been maintained and they're 25 years old or 40 years old? How are they going to replace those? When are they going to replace them? What's the impact going to be to your business for that? I think you want to know. Same thing with, again, if you're just leasing one floor, what about the view of the entire building? The windows, the glazing, the seals around the windows, the common areas. you need to know about those, even if you're just leasing a part of it, because if you're trying to, if you have clients coming in and even your employees coming in, you have to play the part. You have to look the role. Otherwise, you won't get the business.
Right, and then also you want to plan for any business interruption, and you want to know that ahead of time, and you want to plan and calculate and negotiate based upon that, and you'd rather have it proactive about some of this stuff being repaired, replaced, if you know that ahead of time, rather than having an air conditioner break in the middle of summer.
I would rather have a conversation with somebody about the difficult topics that we're going to talk about before we get things signed and moved on. It's easier to have the conversation.
Oh, much easier.
It's much easier to say, okay, we're probably going to fight about these 3 things. How are we going to fight about it? How are we going to talk? So it doesn't become
okay, let's not fight. Let's negotiate.
Exactly.
Okay, let's plan for, negotiate, come to a mutual agreement
Right.
over stuff ahead of time. Afterwards, it's much more difficult to come to a mutual agreement once an original agreement's been signed off on, in my experience.
Right. But you want to know whatever the deferred maintenance was on the property before you get in it.
Okay.
And also the common areas for sure, and the electric and all those things.
Okay. And then the third thing.
The third one's the parking area.
Parking. That's a surprise.
Yeah, parking is expensive. Now, depending upon what you need as a parking lot, maybe you have a large warehouse space, and there's not a lot of parking. There's only maybe 5,000 or 6,000 square feet of office space, so you need parking. But then what about all the places where those big trucks are coming in and out and they're driving through the building? So that's important in the egress to that. But even if it's an office building, it's a much larger parking lot. So it's not just the paved surface. We have to consider the lighting. We have to consider the landscaping. We have to consider where the fire hydrants are. We have to consider the access for the fire department to come in. If something were to happen, they need to have access in and out. We need to make sure that the signage because the emergency people may have never been to this property and something's happening. They need to be able to find it and get in and check everything. So that entire parking area is important. Plus, it needs to be safe. Your employees are coming in or going home when it's dark, as it is in the winter.
In the winter.
Okay. If you drive down the street, depending upon what kind of food you like, and you're going to stop at a restaurant, what kind of parking lot are you going to get into? Well, for me, it depends on the kind of food. Sometimes I want to go to that dive that's all beat up and so on. They may have the best of that type of food. But usually people want to be safe.
Right.
And if everything looks good and is maintained and controlled and everything, they'll trust you faster.
Okay, and also clearly identifiable. So, like, people can find you, and then the people who aren't looking for you won't be coming into your parking lot by accident.
That's right.
Okay, and then the other thing.
And it's not just the surface finish.
Okay.
It's the drainage, right? We have to make sure that any water drains and doesn't freeze up and clog up, and all the water is going where it needs to go. So the parking area is huge, but it's not just the parking lot. I'm also skilled in inspecting parking garages, because a lot of places have parking garages, and that's a specialty that you need to look at in terms of how those are built, how they're maintained, the mistakes that are made, the upkeep on those. It's an issue.
Okay. The other issue, and I'll open up the box on this, is the ADA requirements.
That's right.
Okay, and like, if you have employees, okay, you need to have designated parking. You need to have a point of access from that designated point into the building itself. And that's like, a lot of these older buildings have never taken that into consideration.
That's right. The ADA requirements are big. You need to make sure you've got that covered from for your employees and for any businesses, any business clients coming in.
If you have business clients,
That's right.
customers or whatnot coming in.
The last thing you want is a drive-by lawsuit, because I could imagine that there might be somebody out there driving by a building and say, they're not up to speed on it. Let's hit them with a lawsuit. I mean, you can ask them in court, well, were you ever going to go in there? No, but I could have. Okay, so you'd want to, and that's not just the parking area and the accessibility. That also goes into the fire escapes. It goes into the vestibules, and the doors need to be the pressure on the doors is limited. Can't be too heavy of a door to open.
The panic bars and the height and everything like that.
Everything needs to be checked over.
Okay,
You know,
and that's all part of a thorough inspection that you would be doing.
the ADA inspection is typically an add-on.
Okay.
Because for some people it matters and for others it just doesn't.
Okay.
Okay. There needs to be accessibility everywhere, so that's part of it. There needs to be life safety everywhere. But the ADA compliance, that's typically a specific thing, and we can do that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So what else have you seen out there? What are the trends? What's going on in the current marketplace?
Right now, I see that office space is tough to lease and buy and sell. It's tough. It's been tough. This whole thing of working from home and reconfiguring things has thrown that into a different realm than we were used to before.
So, in your opinion, and now that we're essentially 5 years into the pandemic,
Yeah.
it's pretty much it's going to be the way it's going to be. We're not going back to the way
Not
it
going
used to
back.
be. Okay,
We're not.
it's a new world we live in.
That's right.
Okay, and let me ask you this other question: do you ever see owners before they sell a property or before they lease a property calling in for an inspection? To
Yeah.
see-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Explain that.
So, again, if they're going to, a pre-listing inspection, as we
Yes.
would call it in the business,
Yeah.
makes the most sense no matter what you're trying to sell. Because it makes the negotiation, well, let's say it just greases the conversation.
Well, you have
Because you're
less
being
surprises. Yeah,
less surprises. Listen, the only thing you and I have to sell at the end of the day is trust. That's all I have. Okay. So, and I want my buyer to trust me. I want my agents to trust me. I want everybody to trust me. So the easiest way for me to earn that trust, okay, first they have to like me, then they want to know me, then they want to trust me. Could take some time. But if you can tell right out of the gate that I'm completely transparent, I'm an open book. I've had these things checked. These are the expensive things. Here's the condition of them. I'm going to replace them or not, or we'll negotiate. We'll talk about it. And here's the other things that I could have fixed, but maybe I don't want to, because you're going to reconfigure the space into being what you needed for your business anyway. No point in me spending the money for you to just rip it out. But now we're having an open conversation. I would prefer to be completely transparent in what I'm trying to sell and have an objective party look over the property and beforehand.
A third-party professional.
Third-party professional that's objective, that's not trying to sell you things. I mean, often what I see when people are either buying or leasing a property, the person buying on that end has some concerns that they've come up with because of their knowledge, experience, and watching too much YouTube. So they'll typically have a specialty contractor in that area come in and just look at that. Like if they say, what are you worried about? I'm worried about the roof. They'll have a roofing contractor come in. The roof's fine.
Okay, but there's no comprehensive
There's no
evaluation.
Right.
Okay, so they're almost putting the cart before the horse.
And they're only
No
looking at one thing. These
Right.
things are not, they're not standalone. The building is a system, an integrated system that has to work together. It's not just one thing at a time. And so most specialty contractors, as good as they are, and they are good at what they do, they're typically not able to look at all the pieces, parts. I'm looking for the story. How was this building built? Why is it this way? How did it get here? What didn't happen that should have happened? And how are we going to remediate that?
And from that, you can project the likely possibilities of the future. If it's a lease for the lease period of term, or if it's a purchase for the future as to what the capital expenditures may be over the course of the ownership.
You also really get to know the property management company and the owner, because they may be good at one thing or the other, but they may not be good at some of these aspects, and they need to get good at them. Okay, or it's just not going to work for you because that's important to you. So really, these inspections are so custom that they really relate to the client, what is important to them, what are they going to do with the property, and so on. So going back to your other question, having the property inspected on your way out before you sell it, That's a great idea too, but you don't know who your buyer is because you don't know what they're going to do with the property.
Right.
But all you can do is tell them, it's like a disclosure document, right? That says, here's what I know, and typically the owner right now, because they might be from out of state, whatever, they don't know.
Sometimes some owners are very proactive.
Right.
Okay. And then there's some owners who fix things when they break.
Right.
Okay. And you have a whole mix of owners, a whole scale as to where they take care of things. And so it would be a good idea, especially on those that don't address things as they're needed, to have an inspection done.
Right. And so, it's not that the inspection, in the residential area, people often get home inspections because they want to use it to negotiate a little bit better deal. I don't see that that's the purpose of the inspection or a commercial inspection. I see it more as
Fact-finding?
a fact-finding, so we're walking in with our eyes wide open, and we can look at our business plan and our budget model as to see whether or not that's going to work for us based upon our business model, our revenue, our expenses, and so on. I become more of a business consultant than just indicating systems and so on like that. And that's how I see that business more than just inspections.
Okay. And you work as a team, essentially with the real estate agent, with the other professionals involved, with if they have contractors that would be doing some of the work, or that have been maintaining some of the work, or a management company that have been overseeing over the work of these properties.
It takes a small village to do these properties, the bigger they get. Sometimes my best ally and insight comes from the people that have been maintaining the property, because they know where all the bones are buried. They know what works, and they know what they're having to tweak every day because it hasn't been, and they're just trying, it's on its last leg and it needs to go. They know.
Okay.
It's hard coming in, like this building that we're sitting in. It's a pretty big place. Okay. So to do the whole building, it takes a trained eye, but there's somebody who's walking around here all day, every day, and they know which windows leak. They know which bathrooms have a problem. Why don't we learn from those people as well? The inspection isn't so much of finding fault. It's more of
finding facts.
Finding facts and inventorying the fact. Here's what you've got. Here's the condition that it's in. You have to decide from there.
Saying what is.
What is.
Okay.
I just want to get a baseline, as you said before, as to what we're doing. And the negotiations, the distance in the price for a commercial property is pretty wide at the beginning of the conversation. And it's not easy to close that gap. Having this information would help.
Okay. And this information costs a fraction of that gap.
Sure, I was at a building, it was last week, or I don't remember, it was the week before. Driving down the street, the building looked great. So did the parking garage. It looked great. But in the span of a day and a half, we found about $5 million worth of stuff that needed to be done. To the trained eye.
Okay. And I doubt your inspection costs $5 million.
No, it doesn't. It's a fraction of it. It's a fraction of it. Yeah.
Okay. What else do you have to share with us?
I think it's really just awareness. I think a lot of realtors and brokers don't know that somebody like me exists, particularly in this area here.
Okay.
And I also don't know that people that are buying buildings and leasing buildings know that this is actually an option for them. And that...
Well, in my experience, a lot of times people purchasing know. And a lot of times I stress, even when you're renting or leasing something, it is important going in, and it's a significant portion coming out as well when you're turning the building back over.
Yep.
As I liken it, it's almost like a car lease. When you're turning the car back in, are they going to nickel and dime you to death on that? And that's the whole cost. Actually, the whole cost of the lease needs to be factored in.
That's right. That's right. So I think it's important for people to look at that. And again, the price of the inspection is nothing compared to what you're going to learn about the property going in and how it works and what you can do and can't do. So again, whether you're buying, selling, on the way in on a lease, the way out, maybe if it's a long lease, maybe you want to have this. If you don't have your own maintenance team, right? So these large companies, they have their own engineering and maintenance team. Well, maybe you don't. And maybe part of the service that we provide or could provide is to say, okay, let's open a binder. Let's create a file. And let's make sure you have the phone numbers, people you can learn to know, like, and trust. They're the people that are on call to help you manage this so you don't get into the same trouble that, it's really trying to help people make informed decisions is what it's about.
Consulting.
It's consulting. Okay. Right. It's advice. It's being an advocate for them. The other important thing to know is that these commercial inspections are not like home inspections. It's a completely different animal.
How are they different?
Well, the systems are bigger. The systems are different. The windows are installed differently. The roof is different. The drainage is different. Home inspections don't get into doing these complicated roof systems, complicated air conditioning and cooling systems of all sorts of varieties. The electric systems could be huge and complicated. The parking lot, the ADA, the fire safety, these big items the fire escape, the hallways, the doors, never really get to that on a home inspection. So there's very many more different aspects of it, and putting the story together of the property takes some doing.
Okay, so you're leaving us with two things: a story and a consultant.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else before we close?
No, I think we've got it. I think it's really just creating awareness, in the market around here, so that people can make
informed
decisions, right? So that financially there are no surprises.
Financially, there are surprises are minimized.
There's always going to be something. We miss stuff, there's things, but we can at least minimize the and it really, I think, having this factual information makes the conversation with the party that you're talking to a lot smoother.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure, Joe. It's always a pleasure seeing you. Thank you so much.